our virtual classroom. Today, you will learn how to formulate research questions for your research paper. Also, you will know how to develop strong research questions based on your variables. You will know how research questions pinpoints exactly what you want to know and how it gives a clear focus and purpose to your paper. So, I would like you to prepare your pen and clean paper for some notes in our discussion.
So let us start now our lesson about statement of the problem or specific, measurable, realistic, attainable research questions.
Let me present to you our objectives for today, and I am expecting that you will master at least 85% of our learning objectives. First, at the end of the session, you should know the difference between good research questions and bad research questions. Second, you are expected to formulate your own research questions. And lastly, you have to value the role of research questions in generating reliable and valid findings of the study. And to start with our learning session today, let us know first what is research question. In a research paper, you will usually write a research question to guide your reading and thinking. In other words, your research questions serve as your guide or path in finishing your entire study. Bigger research projects such as a thesis or dissertation, you might have multiple research questions but should be clearly connected and focused on your main research problem. Then the answer that you will develop from your research question is called thesis statement, the central assertion or position that your paper will argue for. Remember, all research questions should be focused on a single problem or issue, researchable using primary or secondary sources, feasible to answer within the time frame and practical constraints, specific enough to answer thoroughly, complex enough to develop the answer over the space of a paper or thesis, relevant to your field of study and or needed by the community and may add contributions to the society in a broader sense. Now, let us talk about the difference between the good research questions and bad research questions. Always remember that good research questions have no simple answer, are open-ended, and consider cause and effect. Researchable can be answered with accessible research, facts, and data. In other words, there are available research literatures for your research questions containing your variables, specifically the independent and dependent variables. Good research questions open the door for other areas of research and inquiry. Often begin with how, why, what, and which. Pass the so what test that are interesting to others. And now, what are the indicators that your research questions are not good? Meaning to say, your research questions need revision. First, have simple or easy answers. Can be answered with single word, a number, or a list. Or cannot be answered at all. There is no absolute answer or no available information to answer the question. And bad research questions can only be answered with an opinion. Often begin with who, when, where, how much, and how many. The question now is how to write good research questions. The process of developing research questions follows several steps. First, you have to choose a topic. Then, Review research literatures. You have to know the blank spot and blind spot of the literatures. Let me unlock first the context of blank spot and blind spot. Blank spot means you try to read literature, but the body of the literature is insufficient to help you suffice your needed information to test hypothesis. Then, your goal is to create a body of knowledge through qualitative questions. Your formulate qualitative questions when there is a minimal number of articles available. While blind spot means that there are sufficient research literatures, but the findings are conflicting. Or in other words, there are two or more research authors with contradicted results. Then, if there are conflicting findings on the literatures, there is a gap between the findings of various researchers, and that is already a research problem that must be answered. And as a researcher, you have to intervene by doing hypothesis testing. Then that is the time to formulate quantitative questions. Anyway, you have to be very careful in formulating your research questions because that is the heart of your research paper. That is where you will generate your data, and everything in your study must be evidence-based. Meaning to say, you have to analyze your data that is purely based on your research questions. Let me clarify again. If there is a blank spot on your chosen topic, you will use qualitative designs. Therefore, you have to formulate qualitative questions that answer what and why. You will develop a theory, and as a researcher, you are part of the process. Your paper will be very rich in narrative, individual interpretation, and you will do the analysis of words or ideas from the participants. And if there is a blind spot of the literature on your chosen topic, you will use quantitative research designs. Therefore, you have to make quantitative questions that will answer how or determine the strength of relationship or difference. You will test the existing theory. You will report statistical analysis, and the basic element of analysis is number. And when you have a clearly defined problem, you need to formulate one or more questions. Think about exactly what you want to know and how it will contribute to resolving the problem. Remember, the kind of question you use depends on what you want to find out about the type of research you want to do. It will shape your research design. What makes a strong research question? Anyway, writing questions is not a difficult task in itself, but it can be hard to work out if you have a good research question. Research questions anchor your whole research project, so it's important to spend some time refining them. The criteria that I will present to you can help you evaluate the strength of your research question. Number 1. Answerable using literatures. And we have 3 types of literatures. First is the conceptual literature, like concepts, theories, laws, Republic Act, and propositions. For example, DepEd Order Number 40, Series 2012 on DepEd Child Protection Policy, or Abraham Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. Second, we have research literature like those actual researches that are embroidered in format or published articles or materials in reputable journals. Third is the gray literature like thesis and dissertations, not yet published, found in library of colleges and universities. These are the actual examples of websites where you may have free access of research literatures. You may get articles from Education Resources Information Center or ERIC, or in multidisciplinary aggregator of open access journals and papers or paparazzi. Now, the next criteria in evaluating the strength of your research question is that good research question focuses on a single topic and problem. Always remember that your research questions contain your independent and dependent variables. In other words, your central research question should follow from your research problem to keep your work focused. If you have multiple questions, they should all clearly relate to the main objective of your study. Next is answerable within practical constraints. It means that you have to ensure that you have sufficient time and resources to do the research required to answer the question. In the Department of Education, we have budget for doing action and applied researches through BERF per DepEd Order Number 16 Series 2017 or DepEd Research Management Guidelines that provide guidance in the management and conduct of research initiatives. And you know what? All eligible DepEd employees may avail research funds. Why need fund? Because there are expenses in doing research, from data collection, to analysis of data, to research presentation, to publication. Anyway, if you think you might struggle to gain access to enough data, consider narrowing down the question to be more specific. And do you know that there are some researchers who keep adding more research questions to enhance the thickness of the research paper, which I personally found unnecessary. Research is not about the thickness of your paper. It is about the problem that might answer right away by the specific research questions. All the terms you use in the research question should have clear meanings. Avoid vague language and broad ideas. Okay, our next is that research question addresses a problem relevant to your field or discipline. Why? Because research question should be formulated based on your initial reading of literatures. You have to study very well the blank spot and blind spot of the literatures and make sure that you develop research questions focused on addressing a problem or gap in the existing body of knowledge. Then, research question cannot be answered with yes or no. It must be complex and arguable. Be informed that yes-no questions are too simple to work as good research questions. They don't provide enough scope for investigation and discussion. For example, is there an increase of COVID case in the country? This question may improve into what factors contribute to the increase of COVID case in the country. Always remember, research question is not answerable by yes or no. Because again, you have to provide scope for debate and deliberation. The answer to the question should not be a simple statement of fact. There is a dire need to discuss and interpret what you discovered through data analysis. Another example. What decision made in secret meeting about COVID-19 caused Philippine government to declare enhanced community quarantine? The question cannot be answered, so let us improve it into what factors influenced Philippine government decision to declare enhanced community quarantine. It is worthy to note that there are often so many possible causes that a research paper cannot provide meaningful and thorough answers. So I suggest to use what or how in your research questions. In this example, I provided a research problem for senior high school researchers. So let me read. As a immersion participant in senior high school, you are interested to know or to assess the perception of school stakeholders on the utilization of webinar sessions for work immersion orientation and online training. So with that problem in mind, you may develop a research question appropriate to your capacity. You have to review the available literatures online because you cannot visit libraries in the colleges and universities. And the suggested research question is, what is the stakeholders' perception on the utilization of e-learning platforms for work immersion in terms of knowledge, experience, commitment, and valuing? On this given question, you may project already the statistical tools that you may use. As senior high school learners, frequency, mean, and percentage are the most comfortable tools that you may use while staying safe at home. There is no need for you to make intricate or sophisticated study like what other researchers do. But anyway, if you are good in statistics, you may check the significant difference between the perceptions of stakeholders prior and after the utilization of the webinar sessions in work immersion, especially if you are BE Ed learner in colleges or universities with your action research subject. Alright. Our next example is for the researchers in the field of teaching. Let me read the example of the research problem. The teacher in a national high school observed that majority of the learners had poor test results during quarter tests, and they seemed less motivated to do classroom tasks. And let's say, after the review of literatures, the said teacher found collaborative teaching as a possible solution. And these are the examples of research question. What is the achievement of the learners based on pre-test and post-test? Second, is there a significant difference between the achievement of the learners exposed to collaborative teaching technique and those taught using conventional teaching technique? These research questions are the best examples for those who would like to conduct action research. And always remember, your study should always contribute to academic debate. It should contribute to the existing body of knowledge, and that is the reason why we have research literatures to be reviewed prior to the conduct of the study. Anyway, it is not actually necessary to ask groundbreaking research questions that nobody has ever thought before. Just prepare research question with some aspect of originality. Look to the new angle of your study in comparison to the conflicting findings of the previous studies. So, before I'll end this session, I leave you this assignment, your task. You have to formulate your own research questions based on this research problem. I will read. In times of pandemic, learners will do school tasks at home. There are some who cannot submit their activities on time due to lack of gadgets and access to internet. And this is the question. As a person with great awareness to their difficulties, you read literatures about e-learning platforms. You found conflicting findings and you decided to test hypotheses. What would be your research questions? So think at least 2 research questions for this session. So this is the end of our session today. Thank you for listening, and special appreciation to all my online sources. And happy writing, everyone.